Hey players, how you doing? Welcome back to Playas Guide. This episode of Playas Guide is another episode where I'll be covering more NES Homebrews that I would highly recommend you go and play. So if you're a fan of NES Homebrews or really Homebrews or new retro games for modern consoles, this is the channel you're going to want to be subscribed to because this is something that I also love and enjoy playing. And I'll be covering more Homebrews and more new retro games on this channel in episodes to come. And if you haven't already found out about some of the previous episodes I've done covering these topics, I'll put a link in the description below and to some of those videos at the end of this video. I also stream on Twitch every Saturday night at 9 p.m. and the core focus of the majority of my streams is new retro games and homebrew games. So to start things off, I'm going to talk about a game called Micro Mages. This is a horizontally scrolling action platformer. I'm trying to think of another game that it would be like, and I want to say Bubble Bobble for the NES, but that's not really true because that has separate screens. It has a similar style of gameplay. However, you're constantly progressing as the game plays, and you can see that in the footage here. This is a really cool game as you work through the stages. There's usually 3-4 stages, and that includes a stage boss at the end of those series of stages for each, I guess you would call it a world. And the enemies in this are really cool. The game is visually impressive. Lots of different enemies. There's a good variety. Some challenging platforming, but it progresses in a really good way that your skill level will progress as you play the game, so it's not too easy but not too difficult. Again, this is another NES homebrew that I would highly recommend, just like everyone on this list, and I had a lot of fun playing it, and I think that you will too. Trophy. This homebrew is by Gradual Games, and if you can't tell already by the footage here, it's similar to Mega Man. So obviously, the people at Gradual Games are fans of the Mega Man series, and who isn't? If you're an NES gamer, there's not too many people I've met that don't like Mega Man games. They are all well-rounded games and excellent to play, and so is this one. So it doesn't exactly replicate Mega Man, but it is very similar in terms of the style of gameplay. So you're going to enjoy this one. Each stage has a boss, and you could select through multiple stages. So if you're having difficulty with one stage, you can always try out a different one and come back to that stage later on. Now the game is called Trophy. The main character is a robot and collects trophies which allow that character to regain health. There's also 1-ups throughout the games, and this game is really well balanced. Again, not too difficult, not too easy, and there's a great variety of enemies, very colorful, and a visually impressive homebrew of the highest quality. 8-Bit Xmas 2020. Now, in the past, I've clumped together the 8-Bit Xmas games on a multi-cart 8-Bit Xmas cart with an LCD screen, which I think is one of the coolest homebrews I've ever seen because of it just everything about these 8-Bit Xmas carts are cool. If you haven't seen these carts light up with Christmas lights. They come out from retro USB every Christmas, and they play Christmas music. And this game is called Dr.Covio. And I know it's maybe funny, maybe not, the play on the COVID-19 pandemic from 2020. But what they've decided to do here is a homebrew version of Dr.Mario. And, it fits in well with the scenario that, we're trying to kill COVID-19, and so are you in this game as the doctor. So the game has you dropping pills and killing viruses, but this game is much more complex than any game of Dr. Mario that I've ever played, and the levels are far more vast. Now, if you ever seen my top 10 NES games, which I hope you have if you haven't checked out that video on the channel, Dr. Mario is my second favorite NES game of all time. I love it, and I love playing it with other people competitively, and this game fits that bill perfectly, and I love it because of that. Alter Ego. This is a game, it's an older homebrew, but it's one that I hadn't played until recently, and I wanted to talk about it because of the innovation behind the mechanics of this game. Now, I can't say that this isn't something that hasn't been done before, but this game, I think, is about a decade old, and at the time, this mechanic is something that we didn't see a lot of in games. The mechanic I'm talking about, you can see here in the gameplay, is the ability to swap within a limited amount of turns your location on the screen with a shadow version of your character. And as you do this, you're solving problems throughout each stage. So you progress through single screen arcade style stages, collecting a certain amount of items that can only collected by one version, either your original version or your shadow version of yourself. And it makes for some complex problems that progress throughout the game in difficulty. So if you're into puzzle games, this is a great one. And it's a puzzle platformer. I had a lot of fun with this, and I think you will too. It still stands up today, even though this is an older homebrew. And a lot of the other homebrews I'm talking about here are quite a bit more flashier or complex. This is a great game. Homebrews don't have to be flashy or complex to be great, and this game proves it. Flea. So Flea is another homebrew game that I'm really impressed with the mechanics. Now, when I saw the trailer, it looked interesting, but I wasn't all that compelled to play it. But when I did play the game, the trailer does not do it justice. Now, I talked about this one before on an episode of the Playas Guide Retro Gaming News Monthly back in 2020. Now that I've played the game, I love this bouncing mechanic that you do as a flea. And it looks as though you're inside of a dog, working your way throughout just its entire body. So when you think about it, there's like some blood and pus and stuff in the game. It could be considered to be a little bit gory, but I don't really consider that. There's a little bit of problem solving involved as you make your way through the different stages. I would say it's a little bit similar to Meat Boy, but the really cool thing about this is it's also kind of like an endless runner where you're constantly in this bouncing motion with Flea. And I mean, I think that you're going to get hooked on this game once you've played a little bit of it. So what you're seeing here may not do the game justice. You really have to play it. Little World is an action platformer that was developed by a homebrewer and his daughter. His daughter drew some of the characters and the level layout, and then he decided to make a homebrew out of this game, and it's really cool. There's also a mode in this game for kids. So in the kids mode, you're not going to have as many pits to fall into, and that's otherwise pretty much the only difference that I can tell. I haven't played too much of the kid version of the game to truly tell you that's the only difference, but you could see why it would be frustrating as a kid to have to jump and fall into pits all the time. It's a little bit easier for kids, and I played this game with my son. He loved it. He wants to play it again, and I really enjoyed the normal mode of this game. I thought it was really cool. Lots of collectibles, and there's some secrets and bonus worlds that can be accessed within the game. There's a series of stages that you work through that is followed by a end boss before you advance to the next world. And this is a pattern that a lot of games have that I really enjoy and is familiar to me. It just works really well. And I think that you will find this game to be well balanced and fun to play. So there's 6 more great NES homebrews that I would recommend you go out, find a copy of this, and play it. I think you'll be impressed and enjoy every single one of these games if you're a retro gamer and you're looking for something new to play. If you want to see more NES Homebrews, make sure you're subscribed to the Playas Guide YouTube, because I will be talking about even more NES Homebrews and even some Sega Genesis and Super Nintendo Homebrews in the foreseeable future. Also, I like to play these games on Twitch, and I have a whole bunch of other people streaming on Twitch throughout the week whose content you're going to enjoy, because we're trying to offer you the highest quality retro gaming experience on Twitch or anywhere. So follow Playas Guide on Twitter and Instagram as well, and we have a thriving community that is consistently growing on Discord, where we talk about retro games, gaming in general, and video game collecting and the latest trends within those aspects of gaming. Playas Guide wants to be your source for retro gaming. That's it for this episode of Playas Guide. Thanks so much for tuning in. Later, Playas.